Hello, Sarah. Congratulations on your Dragon Mama, which I
Thank
saw and
you.
it's very amazing. The part two of the Dragon Cycle. So, talk about your inspiration for this Dragon Cycle and its genre
Yeah.
or its genesis.
Yeah. It really started my senior year of undergrad in 2012. I was attending a predominantly white private liberal arts college getting my BFA, and I was terrified and angry at the prospect of graduating into the real world of theater, feeling like there wasn't much representation, not only out there in the world for musical theater majors, for Filipino, like queer Americans like myself, but also like mad at the last 4 years of my education, feeling like my teachers hadn't really set me up for success the way that a lot of my white peers had been set up for success.
Mm.
And really, in order to kind of like reclaim my power back, I decided to write my own stuff.
Mhm.
And I grew up in a family of storytellers. Everybody in my family sings, everybody's creative. So it made sense that as like a young 22-year-old, I would write about what I knew, and what I knew was my family. So that's where it
Mhm.
started.
Yeah. So this is the story of three generations, your grandma, Maria Senior, your mother, Maria Junior, and yourself. Can you describe to us your grandma, your inspiration for Dragon Lady, and then your mother to your inspiration for Dragon Mama?
My grandmother is a firecracker. She was so glamorous growing up. Some of my earliest memories were watching her get ready for work and watching her do her hair and put on her matching outfits with her heels and her nails. And she was just so powerful. I mean, she was maybe only 5'1", 120 pounds, but whatever room she walked into, she commanded. Um, and my earliest memories were of her encouraging me to like do whatever I wanted. You know, she used to tell me, "You're going to win Star Search one day and pay for my retirement." You know, she would have me sit on her lap while she sang karaoke. So I grew up singing old timey songs with her. Um, she would take me to work when she would work at the bingo hall when there was nobody to babysit me, and I would watch her work in the bingo hall. She would charm everybody, be so social. But you know, at the same time, she's very volatile. One minute she can be sweet, and the next minute she could be pissed off.
Mm.
Like I have seen her take 6 foot tall, 200-pound men to the ground. You know, they would like sexually harass her at the bingo hall, like
Oh,
grab her butt as she walked by.
oh, wow.
And one of my memories was her taking a beer bottle and breaking it over this guy's head, and like wrestle, like not even wrestling. She like somehow, because she practiced like karate or something, so she was able to get him on the floor in a split second, and she was stepping on his neck, and she was pointing the beer bottle at him, being like, "You ever touch me again, I'm gonna cut your dick off."
Mm.
So she was a complicated woman. and my
And your mother?
mother and my mother, you know, complicated in a different way, but also in a similar one. Sorry, one second. My mother had that powerful streak in her too. I remember growing up and going to kindergarten in Alaska. I came home one day because this little boy had beat me up on the playground, like he wanted the swing or something, and I came home crying. And I told my mom what happened, and she sat me down and she said, "Tomorrow, when you go back to school, if he bothers you again, I want you to hit him so hard he never bothers you again." And I was like, "What?" She was like, "I don't ever want you to come home from a fight as the loser. Do you hear me?" So, my mother was really social. She loved working with children. Like, I always had the cool mom. Whenever there was field trips, everybody wanted to be in her group. And she was just so kind to every single child she encountered. Everybody wanted her to be their mom.
Mm.
Um, so she was powerful and charming and social in a different way than my grandmother. She was never violent towards me. That she never spanked me or anything like that, except for that one time that shows up in the show, which I don't even remember. Um, so yeah, I grew up, and then Tina, my other mom, I grew up raised by three very strong, intelligent, hilarious, charming, beautiful women.
Mhm. And so, how did you manage to portray all these characters in one breath, total of
Oh,
28, and
yeah,
still
28.
and still be in character in each one of them. What was the most challenging part for you?
It's just practice, Tita, just practice. You know, a lot of young people, they give up so easily. And I mean, you can't blame them. Everybody wants to be good at something automatically. But I knew that if I was going to do this all by myself, I had to practice. And I saw the women in my life fail and get back up, start all over again. They never gave up. Nobody in my family has ever given up. So I was like, why would I give up just because I'm not good the first time? The fact that I look so good up there and I make it look so easy is because I've worked so fucking hard. I have put more than 10,000 hours of work into my style of performance, solo performance, you know? I don't even really know anybody in my industry who does it like me.
Yeah.
Like, I think some people can play a handful of characters. We're even seeing it in movies where people are playing like two characters at the same time. But I don't know anybody else who can play 28 characters the way that I do.
Yeah, this is my first time to see that too. It's amazing. So the last part of the trilogy will be Dragon Baby, which more about you. How hard was it for you to write about yourself, your experiences, and then later on bring it on stage?
You know, it's so hard. I'm not even done. I'm in the middle. So you're finding me in the middle of figuring this out. It's harder than writing about my mother, harder than writing about my grandma. It's vulnerable in a different way. You know, because with my grandma, I have some distance. Even with my mother, I have some distance. But to then put my story out there, in a lot of ways, I think the biggest challenge is thinking that I don't have a story that's as compelling or as interesting as theirs. So then I'm like, what do I have to like? So what? I had a hard time in college. Everybody experiences racism. So what? Who cares? That's not new. But I just have to believe, you know, that the story I have to offer, and especially my audiences, I think they really want to see how I came to do this work. And how I came to do this work is actually part of my life story. So I just got to believe in that, you know?
Mm. Did you have any idols or comedians or stand-up actors who influenced you?
So, like growing up, I loved watching Whoopi Goldberg and Carol Burnett. I also grew up watching those sketch comedy shows in Living Color and Mad TV. Funnily enough, my family didn't watch SNL. So, like, comedy was a huge part of my upbringing. Um, I grew up watching a lot of movies. I actually didn't start seeing that many plays until I was in college because, you know, plays are expensive. So I feel like even the way that I write my plays are more influenced by movies and TV that I grew up watching and music that I listened to rather than like other musicals and other stage plays. The Joy Luck Club, when I first watched it when I was 10 years old. So in 1999, it was the first movie that my parents saw on a date together. That had a huge influence on me. I grew up reading Amy Tan. Also, Toni Morrison had a huge influence on me. Jane Austen, I read all of her books. I know all of her books like front to back. Anne of Green Gables, obviously. Um, my grandmother was a character in her own right, you know. So yeah, I would say all of my idols growing up were either in literature or film.
Mhm.
Funnily enough. Like I didn't
So,
even know who Leah Salonga was until I was in high school,
mhm.
you
Oh,
know?
so how do you prepare or psych yourself before each performance? Do you have a routine?
Yeah, so I've been a weightlifter, serious weightlifter for 5 years now. So I train about 3 or 4 times a week. Um, Hydration is key. I drink so much water every day. I do a physical warm up and a vocal warm up, probably about half an hour warm up before my show. And then, you know, I review my lines, but I pretty much know them. I review my notes from my director that he gave me the first week of previews. And then I usually do like the first 10 minutes of the play in my dressing room, just saying all the lines and doing all the blocking and stuff, just to get ready for the show.
Mhm. So how did you discover Andrew Russell? Talk about your collaboration with him.
So Andrew Russell and I met in 2017 in Seattle. Now, I knew who he was and he knew who I was, but we hadn't worked together until 2017. At that time, he was the artistic director of a theater there called Intimon Theater. And Intimon Theater was workshopping a new leadership model. And 2017 was their second year of workshopping this new leadership model called the co-curator model, where they would bring in somebody from the community to help them plan the season, sit on the board, and then they would let the co-curator and their area of expertise influence kind of the programming for a year. So they asked me to be the co-curator in 2017. I'd been making my name in Seattle, not only as a solo performer, but as a director, as an educator, and as an activist. I was writing a lot of theatrical critique from like a feminist POC lens, and they wanted basically a young person in their early career to help them plan the season. And so Andrew and I met, and he saw a production of Dragon Lady, which included 4 courses of Filipino food at this theater called Cafe Nordo. And he was like, we need to program that at our theater. You need to have a regional theater debut. And I was like, okay. And then we workshopped the play for 2 weeks. And that's when the idea of a trilogy emerged. And we've been working together ever since.
Amazing story. So you also sing very well, and any special reason why you chose that Whitney Houston song for the show? And do you plan to sing more in yours, Dragon Baby?
I think Whitney Houston is an icon. Anybody who sings or calls them a singer, I think, can't deny her excellence and her repertoire. I grew up listening to Whitney Houston. And when my mother actually met my other mother, Tina, at like the only gay bar in Anchorage, Alaska, Tina was actually on stage singing a Whitney Houston song. So it made sense that if I was going to write their love story and how they first met, that of course Tina would be singing a Whitney Houston song. It's also like thematically, that song, I Have Nothing, is really about being in love with somebody who's your whole world. And my mother, up until that point in her life, hadn't ever had a romantic relationship where that was like fulfilling on both sides, that was equal. And Tina would end up being the great love of her life and a huge influence, positive influence on me. And, of course, my other mother. Dragon Baby will have more music for sure. More music than Mama. Maybe as much music as Dragon Lady had. So we'll see.
Uh, and do you plan to do a TV adaptation on this?
Yeah,
Can you
that's
tell
the
me
hope.
more about it?
Well, honestly, that's all that it is right now. It's just hopes and dreams. I'm working on my pilot. I've never made TV before, so that's the biggest challenge is I've never made it before. And, TV and film is a different industry than theater. I have a feeling that just like in the theater world where I had to independently produce my plays for 5 years before people started to notice, I have a feeling that's what's going to happen in the TV world. I mean, I think a lot of people who are seeing the work are so supportive and they want to like connect me with other people. But one thing that's been really, really important to me and so consistent in my journey is how I and my team preserve creative integrity. It's a little nerve-wracking to consider that a TV producer with a lot of money might come over here and be like, your story is amazing. Now I want you to change all these things. It's
Yeah.
like, well, I need a team that is ready to support the story as it is and can envision it in a TV adaptation in an empowering way rather than trying to make it rather than trying to sanitize it or make it consumable for like wider audiences. So right now it's hopes and dreams. I'm just being patient. TV and film is very fickle. You could work with one producer at a company one day and the next month they're laid off. That's just how it is.
Mhm.
So I don't want to pin my hopes and dreams all in one basket. I know at the end of the day I can do it on my own with like-minded people who are aligned with the work, but I'm not in a rush to find those people.
Mhm. Did you have a videotape of your first one, The Dragon Lady? Oh, okay. Well, that could be a basis for all your TV shows.
Yeah.
Mm. And so, why do you think Dragon Mama is relevant now during this time?
Dragon Mama at its heart is a coming of age story. And everybody's young once upon a time. And everybody gets old if we're lucky.
Mhm.
And I think that, I have never seen a young Filipina lesbian coming of age story
Mhm.
that is like empowering and hopeful and not tragic. So I think it's relevant because it showcases to other queer, lesbian, and gay people that their stories matter, that their identity as a queer, lesbian, or gay person isn't only valuable to our industry when it's wrapped up in tragedy.
Mhm.
Because then what does that tell other people who aren't gay or lesbian or queer? It tells them that gay, lesbian, and queer people have only tragic stories, and that's not true. I think it's also important because, my mother, as a young woman, she became a mother before she even really got to be free
Mhm.
as a young adult. I can't imagine having a baby at 19. I'm 37. That means that if I had a kid, they would be 17 right now. I cannot imagine a 17-year-old in my house. What? you know? So I think it's important too to showcase that, like, becoming a parent at a young age, that's the reality for so many Americans. And it's not like it's not the end of the road for those people. Also, that like young people are so resilient that they have the grit and the determination to change their lives. I think as we get older, we forget to look at young people for inspiration. So many times we become jaded and we're like, well, they don't know, they didn't go through what I went through. And I think we just have to remember that children, young people, they're very smart emotionally and otherwise, and they can envision a more hopeful future than those of us who are old and jaded can oftentimes.
Very well said. Well, congratulations again, Sarah,
Thank you,
and more
Janet.
power to you. Looking forward to more of your projects.
Yay, thanks for having me.
Thank you.